That's where we start today by looking ahead to Sunday's showdown at Old Trafford. It's Manchester United v Tottenham, and the world will be watching.
The theatre of dreams, like little else in our game. One of the glitziest fixtures on the list. The plot feels thick. Lucas Moura, red alert! Bradman! The stars and the storylines. Harry Kane! Third United. Pogba! He's a showman! The most compelling of our time.
It's going to be good, isn't it? Ahead of Sunday's game, we can hear from both the current Manchester United manager and the former one, who will line up in the opposite dugout this weekend. The battle between Ole Gunnar Solskjaer and Jose Mourinho is this week's key clash.
Very charismatic coach and manager, and you've enjoyed in the media talking to him. I've enjoyed watching him, and he's a winner. So, but I'm not one of these that really go into all these call it the mind games. I've got ultimate respect for him as a coach, and of course his results and everything he has given football.
Do you see this Sunday as more of a revenge mission and getting one over Ollie and your former club?
What's that, revenge in football? What's that? What's that?
At Old Trafford.
What?
3 points. 3 points at Old Trafford.
I won so many times at Old Trafford as a Man United coach and as an opponent coach. Revenge of what? Nobody treated me bad in there. Everybody was so nice to me during my time in there. I don't have enemies there. I don't have bad feelings. Revenge of what? It's a football match that I want to win. Just that.
It's going to be a great game this one, Tim. So, Tim, looking at both squads, who's under more pressure this season, Ollie or Jose?
Depending on which club, what the objectives are of both clubs, I think that for Manchester United, it should be getting closer to Liverpool and Man City. On the evidence of what we've seen, certainly with the first game, was so poor. They were undercooked, you know. They play at home against Crystal Palace. They've already played a game. We were ahead of them fitness-wise, and Roy Hodgson went there with a game plan, and Ollie didn't have the answer to it. So they've been very, very poor. I thought they were lucky to get away with a win at Brighton. On the other hand, Tottenham had a very poor start. You know, Everton went there and took the points, and they picked up since then. On the contrary to Man United, they were very unlucky to come away with not maximum points against Newcastle because of the penalty decision. I think they've hit the ground now. I think Tottenham have played the game. I think the Europa League games and the Carabao Cup games have helped them get into their fitness. When you sit down, you look at the both squads, Robbie. I couldn't really pick. I would not like to say which team I'd like to manage. I could not pick between the two. I would edge towards Tottenham.
Really?
I think they have the better players. If Bale is anything like he was
front
when
three
he left,
could be unbelievable.
Bale, Son and Kane,
Wow.
front three. I mean, probably one of the best front threes in world of football. If Gareth is anything like he was when he left 7 years ago, we know time takes its toll. But I would definitely like to manage Tottenham. I think Jose's doing a very good job of talking them down, saying that they can't compete in every competition. Well, if we've only got to look at the Carabao Cup game the other night against Chelsea, there was only Tanganga who wasn't a full international. You know, you got Dele Alli who wasn't even in the squad. You got Danny Rose, who's a full England international. He hasn't even got a number on the back of his shirt. So no, Tottenham have got a very good squad. So have Man United. But at this moment in time, Miguel, I think they're struggling for any sign of form.
Yeah, I mean, related to the pressure on both managers, I think it's almost the Maurizio Pochettino career derby. I think that it's one club that still shouldn't have got rid of him. And it's one club that should sign him.
Yeah.
But I suppose, extend from that, I do think Spurs are just in a bit of a better place right now. Mourinho actually looks a bit comfortable at the moment. He's getting the signings he wants. And just in relation to the signings, actually, I mean, one of the big issues of Pochettino's last few years, and one of the reasons why Mourinho was in the job, is because there was always that sense they didn't refresh the squad, they didn't move around. But how do you explain the difference in Pochettino or Spurs not making signings while Pochettino was there, and Mourinho suddenly having this incredible summer.
I think Jose has always had this wonderful knack, and it's probably the best knack you can ever have as a football manager, and it's getting the owner to spend money. I mean, Jose's a master at this, even Daniel Levy. I mean, he's telling him he needs players. He talks down the squad. He gets rid of the fringe kid players, like Oliver Skipp went out, Troy Parrott's gone. Luke Amos, anyone who's in and around it or could be coming from the academy into the squad, he gets out of the club. And then he talks down the rest of the squad. And Daniel's obviously listening, and he's giving him the players what he wants to help strengthen and get to where they need to be.
But the classic example of that...
Pochettino didn't do that because Pochettino wanted to work with the youth players. He didn't want to burn any bridges. He would never send Danny Rose to train with the kids. He would never burn a bridge with Dele Alli, for instance. Whereas Jose has got a completely different style. Yeah. You would have to say 20 major trophies over his career, it certainly works.
Well, just in relation to that as well, I mean, Jose is the master of kind of expectation management in that. I mean, we saw the classic example at United with, say, the Sevilla game where he's talking about, I'm doing miracles basically to have us in this position. Whereas even we've seen a little bit of a contrast with Solskjaer this weekend, and I suppose he's not as adept at this. Everyone knows United need signings. And I saw there's been a little bit of commotion today because Solskjaer didn't exactly talk in very excitable or proactive terms of making signings by Tuesday. But I suppose he can't, because if he does that, then it'll immediately irritate his squad or create potential problems. Whereas Jose would have no problem with it.
Why do they need signings for what, Miguel, in your opinion?
I think most of all they need a centre-half, which they're not targeting.
No, not what position, to achieve what? I mean, they're going to have to spend more than... Is there a couple of signings to challenge Liverpool and Man City at the moment? So far apart. I think they've got a squad of players there to finish where Tim, I think they will finish. I think they'll finish third this season if he gets the best out of them. At the moment, he's not. So it's not players they need. I think it's someone to coach them.
Do you think perhaps that, well, we'll come on to that in a minute, but do you think in terms of signings, 3 days left of the transfer window, seeing the Champions League draw and the group that Manchester United are in, extremely tough. Do you think that might force United's hand over the next few days, Miguel, to maybe bring in those signings that everyone wants?
I'm not sure, because I would have a few questions over how big they can go with money. I think the Sancho situation has been indicative in that they've known for a long time what the price is. They've been very reluctant to go. I mean, and at the moment, there's talk of about a 30 million difference, which says a lot. I do think they'll get in someone because they need that depth, as you say, especially in a calendar like this with a squad like that. But whether they get Sancho, I'm really not sure. I'm actually quite dubious about that deal at the moment.
Yeah. Is it me, or are you being harsh on Ole Gunnar Solskjaer? You're suggesting they should get Poch. You're saying they need somebody to coach him. Has he done that bad, Ole? Finishing the Champions League place, 3 semi-finals. Okay, Manchester United should be getting the finals and winning trophies. We know that. But are you being slightly harsh?
Yeah.
I love your honesty, Tim. I love your honesty.
I think there's such a gap between Man City and Liverpool and the next team. And they haven't bridged that gap. I think they've got the squad of players there now. If they achieve what they did last year, and Fernandes has helped massively at the back end of last season, because it's a style. I think I can't get my head round. Manchester United is a counter-attacking team. They've got all the players. They've got Rashford, Martial, Greenwood, James, all players. When teams sit back against them, come out and play against them, then they have no problem breaking them down because the pace on the counter-attack. When the team sit back, like Palace, until Fernandes went in there, they couldn't open the door. They never had the guile. They never had the cuteness. They haven't got the interchange.
Well, they have now, though, with Fernandes.
But Fernandes, they're reliant on him. So for me, they don't need another Greenwood and a Jadon Sancho, who's a Greenwood type or a Rashford type who can exploit people with his pace. They needed a Grealish. They needed someone with the guile.
What's Van de Beek?
I think Van Beek is a good player. I watched him play the other night. He plays one touch around the corner. He just gets in behind the opposition's midfield. He's got his head on a swivel. He's got wing mirrors. He can see everything around him. He needs to play. Now, who he needs to play with is Ole's decision. I think he needs to sort out his best team as quickly as possible. Obviously, I'm not having Maguire. I don't think he's top drawer. I don't think Lindelof's top drawer. So they need to sort out the centre-back position. And the person who's going to sit in front, for me, it would be Matic.
This thing, after getting a Champions League place last season, and what I think... Obviously, that's a successful season in terms of the club's targets as to where they were. If you look at how that came about, it was ultimately their main competitors were Chelsea adjusting under Lampard in a similar situation, and then Sheffield United, Wolves and Leicester. 3 clubs basically that couldn't do what Manchester United did, which was go out and sign a £70 million player. That was ultimately the difference.
Is that not good recruitment, though?
Well, I mean, but I suppose it's more.
Was everybody else's fault that Man United got there?
But it's more the question about
Nothing
the
to do with
manager.
Ollie. Nothing to do with Ollie.
But it's more the question about what you should be doing with these resources. When you have resources like a £70 million signing that your competitors can't afford, that obviously gives you a huge advantage. So then the question...
But not to say it's going to work, though. Look at Kepa at Chelsea. He was 70 million quid.
But it's more about what you whether he's maximising resources or just performing to par. And I'd say he was performing to par at best. So the next step in Manchester United should be he's got a challenge for a title in a year, in 2
Really?
years. Yeah, completely. I mean, if the resources, the potential...
They've got a challenge for the title.
Or at least bring them closer to a level where you think
They got to get
right
closer.
track.
They have to get closer. They have to bridge gap. Yeah. But I would say now, no, they spent no money in this summer. Now, I'm going to ask 2 questions. Why have they not spent that money? Is it because they got no money? Or they do not trust the manager to spend it?
Jules?
Robbie, I'll leave that one to you.
It's a fair question, Tim. It's a really fair question. I think that they've been linked with so many players, and as you know, Tim, Manchester United will always be linked with the top players because then other clubs we've seen it in the past. Linked with Grealish. Grealish signs a new contract, doesn't he?
Yeah.
I don't understand why they didn't go for Grealish. I think they need a centre half, no doubt about it. There's been centre halves linked. They haven't got one over the line. I don't know why. They trusted him with Fernandes. They got Maguire. James has started well, but not been great.
Yeah.
Who else have they got? They had 3, didn't they? They got Wan-Bissaka.
Yeah,
It's been okay.
Been okay, but
they
going
didn't start
forward,
him in the first game of the season, which I couldn't
was
understand.
strange. Listen, I don't know if they trust. What I will say is, I think they need 100% to get a centre half in before the window. I don't think they need Sancho. I don't think they need Van de Beek. Did you?
I think they need him in terms of depth, to be fair.
Did you think they need Van de Beek? 40 million quid, he's not going to play.
But it's more so when Pogba or Fernandes drop out, which is going to happen a lot this season because of the amount of fixtures they had. They don't have the kind of the players to come in to bridge that gap, and I think Van de Beek does that, and it gives them a few more options. But as Tim touched on there, you still feel as if Solskjaer doesn't actually know what his best 11 is, or what his best midfield is, or how he should even kind of configure them.
Can Pogba and Fernandes play together?
Yes.
So
Yes.
as
With
2-8s.
Matic.
As
2-8s. 2-8s. Or either Van der Beek and one of the other.
Who would yours be?
Yeah, or you don't have to play 3 up top. Play 2 up top and a 10.
Yeah.
You can use Pogba as a 10. Some of his best games was when he's marauding forward, when they got the ball into wide areas and he was flying into the box. He scored a couple at the Etihad, I remember. He's got that ability he's a powerhouse and he's a big size, big stature. For me, does Paul Pogba help in midweek? He scored against Brighton.
Did he score? Was that his goal?
No,
It
not
was
for
going
me.
wide.
That was definitely going wide.
It was a great free kick that the ball was going wide.
He celebrated it like it was his goal, and it'll give him the confidence and the shot in the arm, which I think he needs. Them Man United players, we know that, we've seen it. When you go to Manchester United, when you play there and they're edgy, you can sense it, you can smell it. At the moment, I don't think all of them are fully confident and have the belief that they can get where they need to be, which is challenging closer to the top 2.
Do you think it's a club still going through the motions in that way? In that they still, it's that statue you're pointing to. Whereas now, like I was at the Liverpool-Chelsea game, and that's one thing that really struck about why Liverpool were so good. It was like one of the great Ferguson teams, and so they know they're basically the default title winners. Everyone else has to rise to their level. Whereas Manchester United just don't even have that, anything close to that aura at the moment.
Yeah, they have that swagger. They always used to have that swagger where they used to stand in the tunnel where they never even used to engage you. Never even look to the side. They just knew, this is our job. You worry about us. We're Manchester United. We have an identity, out of possession and in possession. That's what we do. You try and stop us. We don't see that anymore. I saw the game against Brighton last week. The best team lost the game.
I know.
I
fully know.
The best players won the game.
Yeah.
Rashford. It was an incredible goal.
Individual brilliance, wasn't it?
Here's what I was a manager. And on the flip side, would Brighton even have Solskjaer on their shortlist?
Well, Robbie?
That's
very good question.
What you're saying.
Well, basically, I think
Graham Potter, is what you're saying, Graham Potter would do better with that Manchester United team?
Yeah, I think he would actually, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
I think Graham Potter, just talking about Graham Potter, he's changed from a pragmatic team that Chrissy Houghton had at Brighton to a complete philosophy change. That is someone who you know has worked on his team every single day. Not one day on that training field has he missed. He has used every minute to get his message across. It's a clear identity of how they need to play. He is getting the best out of a group of players. I was going to say average, but they're better than average. On paper, I would say they're average. When I actually see them play together and the philosophy how he's adapted them to play in, I think they're a lot better than average players.
So there's been a time would Graham Potter get the best out of Man City? more than Pep.
I mean, it's not
On that evidence of this season, then.
No, I think because there are
They
different
just
issues.
got hammered 5-2 a row.
But there are different issues with Guardiola because I think that's a squad that has gone a little bit stale. I mean, Guardiola's still one of the great coaches, but I think there's other issues at City. Whereas, it's not to say that Potter would be kind of an ideal Manchester United manager, but I think he's got more of an identity about how he wants to play than Solskjaer does.
They only just stayed up last year, Brighton.
Yeah. And they did the year before, but they were improving the players all the time. I think he improves the individual players, and they don't break the bank to stay in the league. You know, they've signed players, but their recruitment is very good, and the recruitment, the players they bring in, it's not a scattergun approach. Oh, he's available, let's go and get him, and this might be a sexy move to get Jadon Sancho. They actually bring in players who
I think you're being harsh. Martial's improved massively. Green was done unbelievable. Fernandes was great.
For everyone you say is improved, I'll give you another player who hasn't. De Gea.
Matches has done well.
Maguire. I don't think Maguire.
De Gea wasn't great under Mourinho.
De Gea won three. De
He
Gea was player of the year for 3 out of 5 seasons.
Yeah, but he wasn't great under Mourinho.
No, Mourinho, sometimes the manager's not great all the time as well.
But Tomini's improved under Solskjaer.
The one thing I'd say for Solskjaer, actually, to be fair, and it's relevant to what Mourinho said in his press conference there. Mourinho said, I've got no enemies at the club. But I think a lot of people at Manchester United, they wouldn't exactly have the best feeling towards Mourinho anymore. And like that squad was delighted when he got sacked. And or maybe not, when he left, should I say.
And then only got him in the top 4.
Yeah, and that's one thing people do say for Solskjaer, that all of those players actually individually like him. He's created a good atmosphere in a way that was just alien when Mourinho was there. And there is talk that individual players feel they've improved under him. But I think there's a difference between that and what the team as a whole is trying to do, which is the major issue with Solskjaer, and why, even if he's a good manager, even if kind of he creates the right atmosphere, in the modern game, I think there's real questions to be asked about what he's trying to do with that team and how that team is being coached.